y'all. I'm Ellen. We've been super inspired by our journeys of self-healing and discovery.
And I'm Sam, and we want to share our experiences with you to help you get curious about yourself, reconnect, and get intentional about your life so you know what makes you happy.
Welcome to Woo New, the podcast. I'm super excited to hear about Sam's Reiki Master Attunement that happened this weekend at her new digs in the desert in La Quinta. She had Sid and our friend Lexi go over, and I think both of them got attuned. So without even asking any questions, like, why don't you just tell me what happened? Because I'm super eager to hear.
Yeah. So it was a really, really beautiful day, actually. Sid and Lexi came, and then we spent some time talking about what our intentions were. And Sid got into, we have a saltwater jacuzzi and pool here. So Sid got into the hot tub and she Reiki'd the hot tub. And, we just sat in the water at first for a while and just felt the Reiki, which was so crazy. Like, I had never, up until we had done that flow event where Lexi was doing the Reiki in the foot baths, ever even thought about doing Reiki actually submerged in water. But it just magnifies the effects of everything so much. And so we basically took a bath in Reiki physically, which was so cool. And then we did our attunements in the water. And it was the first time that Sid had done a master attunement in the water. So she had reached out to her teacher, Beth, who was like, oh my God, this will be so amazing. Totally go for it. And all of us were just blown away at how much we could feel it and how powerful it was.
I was going to ask before you get even further, because I think for people who are listening, I don't even know if they know what a Reiki attunement is. So why don't we just back up and you explain exactly what attunement actually means in the Reiki practice?
So essentially what happens in an attunement is you have whoever your teacher is, the Reiki master, practices Reiki on you and then draws the symbols that are correlated with whichever level you're at. So at Reiki 1, it's specific symbols. At Reiki 2, it's different symbols. And then Master Reiki, it's the master symbols. But each time you go through the phase of getting attuned, what they're essentially doing is shifting the energy in your body so that you can now receive energy, and energy can flow through you at these different frequencies, at different healing frequencies. So the focus really on Reiki 1, when you get attuned, is, the power symbol and just integrating what does it feel like to be attuned to Reiki in general at a very high level. And you learn how to sort of practice on yourself. And then when you go into Reiki 2, you get attuned with other symbols like the distance symbol and you work with the emotions, and it's a little bit deeper. So each level you go is a layer deeper into the practice and a layer deeper into your connection with the energy and everything around you. And then at master level, the focus is really on earth energy. Like, this is the point where you really open up and you sort of become connected to all of the life that's around you and the world itself. So after we did the symbols, we just sat, in my first 2 Reiki attunements, I could feel little things. Like after my first Reiki attunement on level 1, like when I would open the Reiki channels, my back would buzz, and that's how I sort of knew that I had activated it. In Reiki 2, it was a little bit different. It was more like my third eye, and I could feel like my crown chakra opening. But in this attunement, it was like if the Reiki had been moving through me before, it was more of like a stream or like a little nice creek. And this was just so expansive. It was like someone had just opened the floodgates and it was just flowing freely, but not recklessly. It was just like calmly moving and sort of expanding. So we just sat with that for a while. And then we journaled afterwards to see what was coming through. And um, that was really helpful for me. And I think in my journey, I haven't gotten as many direct messages or downloads. Mine sort of is a very like windy path of discovering things that seem somewhat random and then afterwards sort of piecing things together and being like, oh, I understand how all these things fit together. So automatic writing for me, and automatic writing for anyone who isn't familiar with it, is when you just sit down and you just write whatever comes to your mind and you just don't stop until it's like a word jumble basically, and you just don't think about what you're writing and you just let the pen flow. And so this has been a really monumental piece of my practice because this is how I've been getting a lot of the more clear messages with what I'm supposed to sit with and what everything means. Um, so for me, some of the messages that came through was like, this is a momentous day and everything from here on out is about to change and it's all going to really focus on your third eye, which actually makes a lot of sense because since I moved out here, almost all of the Reiki that I've been practicing has been distance Reiki, which is totally different than doing it in person, but so equally effective. And then after that, of course, we had to nourish ourselves because you have to stay nourished in your body to keep working with this new energy. And the master level Reiki energy is very, very powerful in a way that even 1 and 2 are they're a little bit like stepping stones to sort of what gets unlocked after your master attunement. So a couple things that came up were like, okay, we really need to sit with um, what does it mean to integrate this? What does it feel like in your body? And giving your it's essentially giving yourself time to adjust to it. So for the next 2 weeks, we're really going to be adjusting to this attunement. So then we took a walk in nature, which was awesome because that is how we ended the day. And it was so beautiful. And the sun was setting, and we got to go for this little walk slash hike out in the desert and really just sort of connect with nature and sort of feel the difference in what it was like to be outside and around the plants and around the earth in a totally different way. And I think I was taking on a lot of things that um, were hard to process all at once, but it was like I just felt this ease across everything and this sort of like peacefulness. And I noticed all these really beautiful little wildflowers that were growing up through the rocks that I would have normally just passed by. And I could smell the sage in the air. It was a really, it was almost ceremonial.
How does your body feel now that it's been like a few days?
Well, that's actually a really interesting question. Um, so at first, it was just like flowing. I could just feel the energy flowing in this like sort of expansive. It was almost like my aura was like breathing. um, and yesterday I was so thirsty. Like I could not, it was like I needed to flush all of this like stuck energy out of my body. So I must have drank, 2 gallons of water at least. And I don't actually like water, so that's saying a lot. um, and and then today actually it really hit me. Like I woke up and I was like, whoa, I'm feeling like, waves of being sort of feverish and I'm feeling a little bit tired. And, even Sid had said after her master attunement, it took her a long time to adjust because she was getting these very like almost like hangover headaches where it's like that dehydrated kind of, sort of sharp pain in your head.
Mm.
And so Lexi was saying that she was having a lot of that yesterday too. And so I think we're both just very much in the process of acclimating to it. But what was really cool was when we were sitting in the hot tub after the attunement and after we had done our journaling, Lexi and I were just talking, and Lexi was talking about how she was feeling really empty, and she was feeling just a little bit sad, and it sort of had come felt like it came out of nowhere, and she was feeling depleted. And um ironically, I had had a pretty rough week the week before, so I had gone through almost the exact same, so it's almost like a grieving process where she had mentioned that she was feeling like she knew that she wanted to sacrifice herself for this service, but in doing so, she hadn't really thought about what it was going to feel like, and she almost needed to, like, grieve the death of her old self, which very much is a space that I've been sort of, churning in since moving out to the desert, where it was like, "Okay, I knew this was gonna happen. I was 100% complicit in making these decisions. I knew that, um, I sacrifices were gonna have to be made, but actually getting here and being here, realizing like, oh my gosh, I have to rebuild my whole community, because everything that I had sort of associated with or fallen back on, my friends, my family, my support system, even daughters, like the accessibility with you and I both being in LA, it was like now all of these things had to be cleared, and I have this sort of empty slate or open slate, it feels like now. At that point, it felt empty, um, to sort of fill with all this extra new energy that now it's sort of like a rebirth. And it was so interesting because Lexi was using I hadn't told Lexi any of these things.
Mhm.
And as she was telling me about how she was feeling, she was using a lot of the exact same words that I had been using when I had been thinking about it the week prior. And it made me feel like, wow, this master Reiki energy is so all encompassing, because Reiki is really is more of a lifestyle. It's like, how do you integrate it into your whole life, not just within sessions where you're specifically healing. And it was sort of a really beautiful moment where we just both realized, like, okay, all of these things in our path had to clear and make way for us to continue moving forward with our Reiki practices. And as she was talking about it, for a lot of people, they clear energy when they're practicing Reiki in very different ways. Sid, she yawns. I happen to burp. And that has been somewhat of a new experience that's sort of evolved as my Reiki practice has evolved. But as Lexi was talking and my feet were in the water, I couldn't stop burping. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm clearing your energy through the water, through the current of the water. And I was like, this is so incredible. And it just like it unlocked all of these new possibilities with ways that we can really work with this energy and evolve our practices, not just when we're healing, but all the time. So it was super cool. It was a really beautiful moment.
That's rad. I love, like, I mean, those are, I feel like, are the true kind of, I don't know, moments of learning, when it's not somebody telling you what you need to know, but just you discovering it by simply just being open to it. That's super,
Yeah.
super rad. I guess, and you may not even have an answer for this, but I'm curious, like, how you feel like this new chapter is going to open up, and what, like, you're most excited about and what you're actually eager to experience.
Yeah. I feel like I had known for, so I think, at least 6 to 8 months of last year, I had known that at the end of the year, I was going to have to make this transition. And so I had been sort of like aware of it and had been sort of in my energy field for a long time, but I was really unclear on what it was going to mean for me emotionally and what it was going to mean for me, even just physically being out here. And
Mhm.
I had this weird feeling bubbling up for a really long time that, like, okay, something really big is going to happen. Like next year's going to be a big year, but I couldn't really figure out how. And then, of course, after I got here, my car got totaled, and then I didn't have a car, which became this whole other saga of like, okay, what is the universe trying to teach me? Like, I'm out here in the desert now. I have no car. I don't have a community. Like, what am I supposed to sit with in this silence? Because it's so quiet out here. And looking back, I'm so thankful for that actually, because it gave me time to really reconnect with the world around me and sort of get grounded and build a relationship with nature and the desert and sort of expanding my practice through distance work, which is something that I hadn't really focused on up until that point. Um, and then, of course, I flew back to Colorado and picked up this other car that I now have here. But the drive back was so insane and so stressful. And and it was all my fault. I had stopped. I had stopped at this little restaurant and to use the bathroom a couple hours before the end of my drive where I was going to stay at this hotel in St. George, Utah. Well, of course, I get to St. George, Utah, and then I realize I had left my clutch with my wallet and my money and everything, my ID, in the restaurant in Richfield, which was like 2 hours away. So on my drive back, I put in the address for where I needed to go, and I think it said something like 167 miles, and the cruising range on my car said 155 miles. And it was just like one of these perfect storms from the universe. Again, like the same way that it happened that I had just plopped out here in the desert and then all of a sudden had no transportation. And I just had to sit with that and like learn from it. And um, all of a sudden I was like, okay, I may or may not make it back to sleep in my car in the parking lot of the restaurant and wait for the manager to come and open at 8 a.m. the next morning so I can go and get some more gas. And then make the 2 hour drive back to where I was, plus some. So it I had resorted to everything that you logically resort to in a situation like that. I had called AAA, of course, they wouldn't help me because I wasn't on my dad's account. And then I had called my insurance, USAA, to ask them to if they could send gas out, which they totally would have done, but I had to pay for the gas in cash when they got there, and I didn't have any.
Oh God.
And so where I landed with this really nice woman, it was like 1 in the morning. She was like, well, okay, if you can get as close to your destination as possible and hopefully within 10 or 11 miles, then we can give you a free tow from there to the parking lot so that you can get your wallet and then get the gas in the morning. And I was like, okay, I guess I will call you back probably in 45 minutes. And all like the second that I hung up, I was like, I have no options here but to trust and just pray. And all I could think about was like, all everyone I know who works with energy and works with Reiki is like, oh yeah, sometimes I'll Reiki the traffic and it'll clear for me, or sometimes I need a parking spot and I'll imagine it and I can like open the channel and it will be there when I get there. And none of those things, by the way, have ever worked for me. But um, this was a moment where I was like, I don't even get the opportunity to think about what might happen if I don't make it, because if I even let that thought creep into my mind, it's going to happen. I'm going to manifest it. So I got back on the road. I like it was a desperate drive the whole way. I just opened the Reiki channels, did the power symbol, and prayed to the universe like I have never prayed before to get there on time safely. And long story short, thank God I did get there. Everything worked out. I got to the gas station the next morning and I had, I think, 16.2 gallon tank and I filled up 15.9 gallons. So I literally coasted into this parking lot on fumes. And I have never believed in Reiki more. And I, to this day, am like, okay, that was the lesson. Like, I just have to surrender and trust because there's nothing else I can do. And it was it was a really weird drive because in a moment where I typically would have had just a straight panic attack and maybe called my parents who couldn't have helped me from where they were anyway, just to like vent and like cry and freak out. I like did none of those things. I was like, okay, you're out here on your own. This situation was fully caused by your poor memory. You just like your only option now is to deal with it and just trust and believe that you are going to make it. And and I didn't even care about sleeping in my car. I was like, I fucking made it. I was like shaking at the end and tears were like streaming down my face. And I just kept saying thank you over and over again. I was like, I fucking made it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then in the back of my head, I was like, oh my God, I hope Fairfield Inn and Suites, I slept in their parking lot. And I was like, I hope that they don't have security cameras in their parking lot. See me posted up in my car all night.
Oh my God.
But in and then I got home and I was exhausted. I was totally wrecked when I got home, but I was in such a good mood when I got home. And the whole time I was just like, I felt so protected and so guided. And I know that sounds totally cheesy, but like I don't know that there's any other way to explain it, because my luck in that circumstance, this is not the first time something like this has happened to me, and my luck typically does not go this way. And I was like, I have never believed in Reiki so much. And so to have this attunement then literally the next day after I got back was so huge. It just felt like the opportunities in the world is like now opening up. And this is now, I feel like I'm having a coming out party with nature. And then, of course, that night where like every time I get attuned, all the animals and all the bugs come out of the woodwork and they just find me. So, of course, that night I'm walking into my room and I walked around something in my line of vision that I had just barely seen out of the corner of my eye. And I thought it was a fly coming at my face. And I turned around and I realized it was actually a spider that was like climbing up a little tiny web that had went from the floor all the way to the ceiling in my bedroom. And I almost walked straight into my face. And I was like, again, that happened right after my Reiki 2 attunement too. I walked right into a giant spider web in my face.
There's something with you and spiders too and Reiki. Like
I know.
I don't know what that is, or have you investigated that? Because it seems like spiders are a theme in your life.
Yeah, like many of the like many of the animals that I seem to have popping up all around me, they all seem like very daunting and potentially like ominous animals. But since the beginning of my Reiki practice, it's really been about exploring my shadow sides. And I think a lot of that comes from, my PTSD in having worked in digital marketing, most specifically as an account person, where it was like, okay, my voice is not the voice that matters. Like my voice is here to communicate the voice of the needs of the team, the creative insights and strategies, and to help projects move slowly. Like there was never a moment where it felt like it was acceptable for me to have an independent voice, and certainly not in marketing anyway. I mean, even on the creative side, like that better than anybody, it's like there are no independent voices. um
Yeah.
we are all sacrificing for the greater good. And so it felt like I needed to spend in retrospect, now I know, because I was my Reiki 1 and 2 training went, for the better part of last year and didn't end until December. And so in hindsight, I'm learning now that like I had a lot of these sort of shadows to confront and explore and to sort of reframe a lot of situations that I would have seen as very negative, or I would have been really anxious about being in or expressing myself. I've had to sort of learn to reframe them and to approach them in new ways. And I think, everybody always says Reiki is life force energy, and it is, the energy that is everything. And even though it's a practice and it's a healing modality, it's so much more than that. And so it's really like pulled my entire world in this much larger, much brighter and all-encompassing direction. And now it feels like in my master training, like I spent the time that I need to explore those shadows, and certainly they haven't gone away. If anything, I've just uncovered more. But I have the tools now to work with them in a way that I can heal them, and I can help heal others, and I can have a voice that contributes to a healing community. So it felt like a really like ceremonial day for me overall, and I think that's the thing I'm most looking forward to, is just really like evolving my practice and evolving my connection to the world and the universe and like everything that's alive around me, and having so much space out here, and it's so quiet out here that it's almost like I have no choice but to sit with that.
Yeah, 1,000%. I feel like it's so funny because as you're talking, I'm actually flashing back to conversations that we had last year, even like on the earlier side of the year, before you even started Reiki 1, where you're really skeptical about Reiki. And it sounded so,
I was so skeptical. I was like, this is a bunch of bullshit.
yeah, it sounded beyond woo woo to you. It sounded kind of like, you were like incredulous that this was even a legit
Yeah.
thing.
Like,
And
and I knew nothing.
right, right, right. But like to see where you're at now and just how powerful the practice has been for you and how it's helped you to also step into your own power and all these things, like it really has been your main healing modality that you've latched onto, that has carried
Yeah.
you and like opened up your whole world and just opened you up to what's inside. And for me, obviously it's been breath work, but for you it's very much been this Reiki and energy healing. And it just makes me laugh because it's always, I mean, everything that you just fight against, I feel like in life, always ends up being the answer. Do you know
Yeah.
what
Yeah, it's so true. And it was just like, and even with going back to the conversation with all the bugs and the animals, like even that, it's like I had to laugh that I almost walked into this giant desert spider I mean, like, what are the chances that it would be right in my walking path and that it would be crawling up this web at the exact eye level that I was walking into it? I was like, oh my God. And but all of these animals that keep coming around are very like they're nocturnal, right? They're of the night. Or if not of the night, they're things like praying mantises and hummingbirds, which are all about going internally and introspective thinking and reconnecting with yourself, but to a much greater universe through yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's like every time I see one, I just have to, accept that that's the sign. It's funny because I even pulled some medicine cards the next morning, and I did sort of a past, present, future card. And my past card was the grizzly bear, and the grizzly bear is all about being in hibernation and
Mm.
sort and um, rebirth and coming out into the spring. And even though it's hard and it's going to be tough and your muscles are tired from sleeping all winter, like this is a moment where you have to come out and you have to expand to continue. And then the present card was the gazelle, which was really interesting because the gazelle is all about vulnerability and all about beauty and um, sort of just being, not being afraid of all of the predators and all the scary things around you, and just reminding you to like stop and remember all of the beautiful things that you've built up to this point and take appreciation and to really like open yourself up to that vulnerable space. And then the future card was the golden egg, which is all about, your heart chakra. And it's all about finding enlightenment and finding healing through introspection and vulnerability. And I was like, these cards could not be any wilder. Like they just were so spot on. And it just made me really excited because I really do. I feel like we've had so much stuff going on through the end of last year and then the holidays. And then I had this crazy move that just consumed me and broke me at one point, it felt like. Um, but now it really is like a rebirth. Like I'm just excited.
Yeah. I mean, I can't help but notice also that the timing of us about to, talk about our intentions for the year. I mean, this is like the end of
Yes.
February, right? Like we're about to step
Yeah.
into March. So it's not exactly the beginning of the year. And, I had done the whole intention setting, blah, 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 the start of the year. But there is something that is kind of forcing us or guiding us to reset our intention, relook at it together,
Yes.
and it's not a coincidence that it's happening after your like Reiki Master Attunement, and it'll be after like my
Yeah.
trip to Idlewild with like some,
Yeah, with another crazy psilocybin experience.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool, and it feels like, when I very first started my Reiki journey, at the same time that I had done that, I was really starting to open up just to energy healing in general,
Mhm.
and I had randomly been reading all of these books that were about, quantum physics and, gifts like telepathy and clairvoyance and how on like a scientific quantum level they worked, just because I was so fascinated by the concept of it. And I didn't know in any way that that was going to be then connected to my Reiki, or that that was going to then open me up to energy healing as a whole. But it totally just like opened those doors. And as I was going through this period of sort of like brokenness of picking up the pieces the week before all of this stuff happened, I had sort of gone on another one of those totally crazy tangents where I had started reading these books by Graham Hancock, actually, and I finished them on my drive. And, since I had an extra 4 hours of my drive, I got to read two books instead of one. And um, it's there's no coincidence either that you're doing all of, these Wim Hof workshops, and that I had just listened to those podcasts, and that we've both been reading Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. And then all of a sudden I'm reading these Graham Hancock books where he's tying together like the origins of man. He's talking about like evolution with psychedelics. He's talking about these stories that have always been sort of written off, especially in the last 100 years, about the origins of these religions and how societies went almost overnight from being hunter gatherer to being very advanced, civilized, technologically motivated, very esoteric and into astrology, mainly the one that we think of as ancient Greece, but he gives a number of other examples, and how we never talk about that just happened essentially overnight. And he ties it then all back into these concepts of how our DNA is structured, and how material scientists talk about, the 95% of our DNA that it exists in every atom, they say is like throwaway genes, because it only takes 5% of our DNA strands to create the bodies that we live in. But there's no such thing as throwaway DNA, like,
Mhm.
and he, in this random part of the book, he talks about how if you analyze any language across the world, it doesn't matter what language it is, like the most common word used in that language will always appear X number of times. And then the 10th most common word in that language will always appear, say if the first most common word appears 1,000 times, then you know that the 10th most common word, no matter what language it is, will appear 100 times.
Mhm.
Um, and they apply. So this was a separate mathematical sequence that scientists who were studying DNA had realized and applied to our DNA structures, to the parts that are unused
Mhm.
in our bodies. And they found that that same law applies to the DNA structures that we don't use in
Wow.
every atom. So there's literally a language written in our bodies that is wiser than we are, that like only the select few are may ever be able to access, and all of it's like, so all these random pieces are coming together, and I'm starting to realize like, whoa, this is so much deeper and so much bigger than even I had thought it was. Even though I know Reiki is a lifestyle, and it is an ever-present energy and tool that we can tap into, like, it's so much bigger than that. Like, energy healing and energy in general is just like, there are no holes. I mean, he literally circles everything you can think about through history, through archaeology, through, he talks about like the rock formations and the sedimentary um, layers that they've been able to test that prove, when people lived in certain places and how they lived, and it all ties back to the same things. Like, there's not one piece of it that you couldn't argue contributes or benefits from this knowledge. We just don't know that it's there, and we aren't aware of it.
Yeah. And our focus has become so myopic, I think, in
Yeah,
modern society that it's
exactly.
kind of like we're ignoring the big elephant in the room in a sense that yeah, I love what he says in that podcast that I shared with you about how every world leader should do ayahuasca at least once.
Oh my gosh, I know.
I mean, I
I
believe it, you know?
Yeah. So the first book that I read from him was called The Magicians of the Gods. And he had really focused in on that book on recent archaeological finds that prove that there were very advanced human civilizations prior to the Ice Age. And he makes a very good case for Atlantis having actually been a real society, and that the earth then was hit with a meteor or a fragment of a meteorite, which caused the melting of the ice age, which is what caused the flood that destroyed Atlantis. And there were only a handful of people, 7 to be specific, who all of these various religions refer to as the magicians of the gods. And it's like these 7 people went out to in all different directions of the world to find the remaining hunter gatherers that had survived the melting of the ice age, to teach them about astrology, about um, um, medicine, about plant medicine and psychedelics, and science, and all of these very advanced theories that in a lot of ways are actually much more advanced even than our society has, been able to evolve to. And then in the second book that I wrote is called Supernatural, and he talks about stories from shaman and what it means to be a shaman, and what these experiences that these shaman have when they work with ayahuasca are like, and how they learn from these plant medicines, and how then he cross references like all of those experiences with folklore from across the world, like Ireland and Scotland, where all these people say that they have had experiences with quote unquote fairies.
Mhm.
And then also he goes into alien abductions, and he compares the descriptions of all of these experiences, from shaman to fairies to, back in the Middle Ages to even today, to crop circles, and they all talk about the exact same creatures and the exact same lessons, and unanimously across all of the cultures, time frames, and contexts, they all have these very fundamentally universal experiences,
Mhm, mhm.
which is like that is coming from a creator source. If it was just neurons in your brain being stimulated, everybody's experience would be, you could expect to have a psychedelic experience, but everything that they um every time you did it, it would be so vastly different than anyone else's experience, and in wildly affected by, your conditioning, and your upbringing and your culture. And while some of the details do vary based on those things, like the fundamental experience that all of these people are having is exactly the same.
It's so mind-blowing. It's like, I don't know. It's funny because Adam has read a bunch of his books and you know, obviously he's like hyper intellectual to the point where we argue a lot of times about, you know, is Reiki a real thing? You know, things like
Oh my
that.
god, I know.
However, he 1,000% believes in everything that Graham states in the books, like the fairy sightings, and you know, he's like, it's so much easier for him to believe that in the potential existence of that than this unseen life force energy that I find really fascinating because I'm like,
Because they're the same.
right, exactly. Which, you know, and everybody, you know, they go up their own path up the mountain and they, you know, so I don't judge them for it, but I was laughing as we were talking about this on Sunday because I'm like, how is it that you can believe in this or believe that this is possible and yet this is not, you know, like you can't get yourself there, you know? It just made me laugh because I just realized that's what makes life kind of fun because each one of us have such a different way of processing all of the
Yeah.
same things, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so cool too because I was watching this documentary on Gaia the other day, totally randomly, just about energy healing. And I had just stumbled across it and put it on in the background. And it caught my attention when they started talking about crop circles and how, just as in all of these religious healing centers, like places where people will go to bathe in healing waters, or there are places around the earth where the energy comes together in a certain way, and there's a certain frequency in that area that can help your body physiologically like retune to homeostasis, much in the same way that you can program your body to do that yourself through breathing and breath work and the Wim Hof method and everything even you tried this weekend. It's the same exact concept, right?
Hmm.
But that then they started talking about crop circles and how these crop circles have these insane healing properties to them. Like the frequency that comes out of these areas is totally unbelievable, and they can actually attune things to those frequencies using photos of those crop circles. And there have been scientifically proven results of nurses using these attuned photos of these crop circles on patients in recovery after surgery who have healed significantly faster than other patients.
Wait,
And the only
as in they're looking at these photos?
As in literally, the nurse said that she would ask her patients when they came out, a day or two after recovery, where they were feeling the most pain or the most discomfort.
Uh-huh.
And then she would show them a handful of pictures of crop circles, and she'd say, pick whichever one makes you smile and makes you laugh a little bit. And they'd pick that one. And then she would place the photo over the part of their body that was feeling the discomfort or the pain. And every single patient healed weeks faster than any other patient that came out of those hospitals.
That's fascinating.
It's so, I mean, like what we can do with energy is so insane. And then randomly, I'm so exhausted. I'm driving back on Saturday. I'm almost to the desert. I've got like 2 hours left. And Graham Hancock starts fucking talking about crop circles in this book about supernatural. And I was like, what is happening right now?
It's definitely a sign. It's
Like,
definitely not a coincidence.
yeah, so it's super cool because sometimes when I start these little quests, if you will, they're like little self-educating vision quests. um like I just don't know where they're going to go, but something kind of interests me, and then I just sort of like follow the trail. And it's always really exciting when I start to be able to piece everything together, but this one was extra exciting because on top of it, it was like, okay, now there's this momentous shift in my environment here in the desert. And um, it's almost like I feel like the universe has granted me permission to evolve my Reiki practice.
Oh, hell yeah. No, I'm excited to see what happens after this point too, because if you look at how quickly like you have grown through your Reiki practice in the span of a year, like I mean, I don't know. I keep on thinking that it's like the deeper you go, the faster you grow or something. I don't know. It just seems like everything just constantly is speeding up and speeding up. And And I don't know if there's like steps that are being skipped or what, but like, I don't know. I mean, I'm seeing it in my own practice too, and I can't
Yeah.
explain it, but it just seems to be happening, you know? And
Yeah, I've noticed that with both of our practices too, like especially yours, and also all of the people that we've been interviewing. I mean, it's so cool to find these people who are out in the world just thinking outside the box and going against the grain to just live in their truth and follow their passions, and then are subsequently inundated with all of these amazing opportunities because they're just all of a sudden on the right path, and like validation comes in its own time.
And I feel like the more of this work that you do, it's just like it opens you up a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. And like if you imagine yourself as sort of almost like you have this like aperture, like that is just this doorway that just keeps on opening up and exposing you to new ideas or new things or new experiences, as you're just building on top of the last thing that you just experienced or did, you know? So you're just widening up that aperture to just take in more as time keeps on going. So I mean, I wonder if that is why it feels like things are happening at this exponential speed. But because in the beginning it's really hard because you're like slammed shut, you know? And so the work that you're
Yeah.
doing is just to creak it open a little tiny bit. But now that it's
Yeah.
open, you know, it's like it's easier for it to continue to open and open and open, um, which is the exciting part for me. I feel like it's really cool to see what you're going to experience doing distance Reiki, but not even just that, but like how the desert's going to affect your practice, you know, because you really are at the start of your journey there. And it's just, you know, now that you're master tuned, like I feel like it's just going to continue to widen and open in unexpected ways.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. I'm excited for the unknown, and it after my attunement, Sid was telling us what sort of came up for her while she was attuning us, and she said that, both of us, she was like, the work that you guys have been doing has been working. Just know that, because your bodies were so ready for this. Like it was
Wow.
almost like they just sucked up this attunement and the symbols. Like you guys have both been working really hard. But she said when she was working on me specifically that the symbols really went into my shoulders, and the energy really like stayed around my shoulders and my chest, and that
Mm.
is all about trust and
Like, as in that's what you need to work on, you mean? Or
yeah. She said something like, for you it's all about trusting and letting go of expectation of what you thought you should be, and what you thought you should be doing with your life, and just being open.
mhm.
And as she was saying that, I was like crying a little bit inside with happiness, because I was like, okay, last weekend was not for nothing. you know, like I
Yeah.
had to learn that lesson. And when I was driving home, I was like, I had no option but just to trust and believe. And like, I have never believed more. And so now for me, I think the next stage is just going to be really focusing on staying open and reminding myself to trust the signs, even when I want to question them. Because, like, let's get real. Sometimes the signs are kind of crazy. And it's like, did I see something, or am I like getting a migraine? Like, you know?
I That's really interesting. I Because I can relate to that, and I feel like a lot of it has been very much, about surrendering, as you know, for me too, and trusting, like and receiving, you know,
Yeah.
as part of that as well, which I'm learning through my breathwork practice, you know, because obviously whenever you're on the mat and you're breathing, it is all about receiving, you know? And so it's not a coincidence that that's what I'm gravitating towards and that's what's showing up for you as well. But it just seems like there's a lot of similarities there in terms of,
Yeah. And what a cool parallel that we're both experiencing this lesson right now, where we're having
yeah.
to learn how to express our needs and set boundaries in healthy ways, not as ways to shut the world out, but as healthy forms of communication about what we need.
Yeah.
In our relationships, in our business, with each other, with the new distance and the physical proximity now between us, and our individual practices, even as they expand. And that it's sort of like we're both being presented with this in slightly different ways, but at the
Mhm.
same time that now I've just made this move and we have to logistically work around all of these other things. The universe is like it's giving us a platform to.
Practice.
Yes. Yeah.
To learn those lessons, yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100% 'cause you take a lot of things for granted when somebody is just, like, directly there within reach, and so
Yeah.
now it's forcing us to do a little bit more, like, vocal planning and
Mhm.
thought, like, real, like, let's get together and sit down and really think about how we wanna move because also, with you being further away too, I feel like it also is making us get very real about what it is that we want to focus on,
Yes.
because everything has to be so much more tight and buttoned up
And
and
planned.
yeah, and efficient in that way because you have to make up for the distance. So all these things I've been taking into my like heart and just kind of realizing that it's not that there are lessons here that obviously both of us are being asked to learn and to experience. And it has a lot to do with the way we're going to grow the business and how we're going to grow this podcast. And it's
Yeah.
really exciting, but it's really exciting to actually see that because I don't think I would have seen that before.
I definitely don't think I would have. And I think the other really exciting thing about it is like, even though these lessons are coming with their own challenges, like just in this short time since, we met and planned out 2020 when in the middle of January, right before my move,
Mhm,
early January.
mhm.
And then just in 6 weeks, we were gifted this conversation
Yeah.
randomly from the universe after one of our interviews, that sort of opened up the fact that our needs have in just 6 weeks evolved quite a bit because situations are changing and because there are a lot of things we couldn't foresee before I moved that we thought like would be much, would just be like little check boxes off the list, whereas
Mhm,
really it's like, okay, we're being asked to honor this opportunity to practice and to express our ever evolving needs. And it's sort of cool to be able to see that. And for me it was like a big aha moment when we had that conversation, because I was like, when did we start believing that that our needs were not going to ever change and that we weren't going to evolve, you
I
know?
know. Well, I think also it's been so kind of mind-blowing to see how quickly things are shifting and changing for each of us that it's that experience just taught me that, okay, we need to have more of these checkpoints,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
things are happening so much faster and, you're gonna have things that pop into your head that and new inspirations that suddenly you're gonna be like, "Oh my god, I feel like I'm being called to do this," and that's what was happening for me too, and so to me, I feel like the magic is where you and I can come together and figure out where do we align and like because we obviously are on very, very parallel paths, but there's crossover in certain areas and then there's not going to be crossover in other areas. But that the beauty of what we're doing is that we're making space for where the crossover isn't occurring so that both of us can explore those areas
Oh
as
my
well.
gosh. Yeah. It's so cool that you just said that, because I also feel like part of this little like platform of practice that we're being gifted right now is is by default.
Yeah.
Now it was like, okay, all of last year we really needed to figure out what we wanted to talk about and what we were super passionate about, not just through the store, and through the experiences that we were having, but how we wanted to share it with the world. And so it was a very like collective effort for us to find that voice. And now that we are in different cities, it's like the universe is saying, okay, you've had that practice. Now you can graduate to the next level and we've created this space in both your lives for your personal practices outside of daughters that are always obviously going to intersect in some way and be very relevant, but also separate.
Yeah, it's space, it's room, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like when you pack things to the gills, there's no room to grow. You just are kind of like that. I think is really what forces you into survival mode. I don't know. I feel like there's something to be said about having the room to be able to explore and then come back. Whatever you're doing, whatever I'm doing, it's always going to kind of come back and feed itself into daughters and Wunu and all the things that we're doing together. But yeah, having that space is so important.
Yeah, and it's almost like being forced to, plan things out and get more focused on our goals has almost like as a side effect created even more space for us to sort of explore those areas, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm for the first time, I can honestly say very excited about this year. After the move, I was like, oh my God, what have I done?
I know, but honestly too, looking back at January when you were just packing up and just, logistically figuring out all these things and then the thing with your car and it just seemed like you didn't have the space. Like you just needed to get there, and you needed to get there and
Yeah.
then spend some time just being there and letting the dust settle a little bit and until now, like it's like
Yeah.
had your Reiki master attunement happen even at, let's say, the end of January, I don't think that would have been the right time. I don't think you would have been ready.
I don't think I would have either. Like I honestly believe there is no doubt in my mind that horrible, horrible drive had to happen before my attunement because I don't know that any other situation would have gotten me to the point that I'm at now where I'm like, okay, like I fully trust and believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though I knew before and I've been doing distance sessions and I get feedback and it's always incredible and so such an honor and so validating to hear that people can feel it when I'm working on them and and
Yeah.
that people even when we did our event with her at Lighthouse, and I was doing Reiki in the room while you were leading the breathwork session. To have the people in the room who were familiar with Reiki tell me afterwards that they could really feel the difference.
Mhm.
That was super validating. But I think in a weird way, none of those validations would have meant the same thing as like me having this moment of just no choice but absolute surrender.
Yeah, because also you don't need validation from anybody. You know what I mean? Like, this is really about you and your connection to the universe.
Yeah, and my shadows.
Right,
It's all about my shadows.
right.
Yeah.
So had anybody been around you in that moment this past weekend, I just don't think it would have been as powerful. I mean, you needed to literally be completely alone.
Yeah, with no option.
Right.
Like literally 0 options. I was like, I might die on the side of a highway. Like
But, it's really fascinating the way all these events kind of play out. I think these little tiny validations from people are like little nuggets of like, it's like a little gold star here or there. It matters, but it doesn't really matter ultimately in the end because the real thing that you're working towards is this complete surrender.
Yeah, it's and it's really exciting too because we've been talking about how much space there is out here and it's just little me and Mika
Yeah, yeah.
in this giant house most of the year. So it was a really special moment for me to have Sid and Lexi come out and see the house and see the space and get excited about even like hosting a flow event here this summer.
Oh, that's
And
rad.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like all these new opportunities are starting to open up just very organically, even. And I'm just so beyond grateful and relieved. And like, not gonna lie, fucking relieved.
Well, good.
Um,
That's like a fantastic report.
Yeah. Check back with me in 2 weeks though. I'll let you know like if the new energy is giving me like migraines and stuff because that also can happen, but I think there's going to be something really special about having access to the salt water and being able to immerse ourselves in the salt water here, and build a community here around energy healing and any type of healing really.
Yeah.
And just to open the doors, I told Sid, I was like, I had this moment where I was having this breakdown and talking to a tree at like 1 a.m. the other night. And I was sitting and I noticed as I was looking at the different branches, like they would only move a centimeter or two, but every branch I looked at would move towards my face as I would look at it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm actually having a conversation with this tree. Like it feels me.
Oh, that's
Which was such a,
awesome.
I know. It sounds like I was totally high, but I definitely was not. But it was a really big moment for me to realize like we're so connected. And I can't wait for the day that I have one of these like amazing transcendent, like journeys on psilocybin where I like feel that through my whole body. But I haven't had one yet. But this was my little like gut check of like, okay, I have a whole new relationship to all the life around me now, and it's up to me what I want to do with it. And if I feel isolated out here, certainly other people do too. And maybe then the need is not me going out and frantically like pulling my hair out trying to find communities that already exist, but offering the space for a healing community to come together.
Oh my God, 100%. That is huge, And I mean, just even being out there, there is a sense of peace and just you need that peace in order to just even get away and hear your thoughts and hear your heart and connect. So, oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah, dude, 100%. Like, I think there's a reason why you ended up moving there and into that particular house. Yeah, it's all meant to be. It's totally all meant to be.
Yeah. So very excited. We'll do more check-ins. And I also, as I was journaling and meditating before we did this interview, which by the way, for the first time, I was like, oh my God, and I totally get why people tell us they're nervous sometimes now. Cause I was like kind of nervous.
Dude, you're one of the hosts of the podcast.
Yeah. I was like, I've been so spoiled. Holy shit. But this is really exciting for me too, because I feel like this is now in a big way, like we had talked about before, like such a huge opportunity for me to find more of my own voice, and to, I hope, inspire and encourage other people who are feeling like they don't have a voice in their situations to find ways to just start sharing. So, hopefully we'll have lots more like fun updates and other journey episodes to keep everybody posted, but I think it's gonna be good.
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm excited.
Music for Woo New is composed by Adam Miller.